As the son of artists Max Ernst and Lou Strauss Ernst, an art critic and historian, Jimmy Ernst grew up among the leading European artists and intellectuals of the time. In his rebellious adolescence, he took no interest in his parents' world of visual arts until the age of 17, when he encountered Picasso's epic painting, Guernica, at the 1937 World's Fair in Paris. It was a defining moment for the young Ernst. The following year, 2 weeks before immigrating to America, Ernst attended an exhibition in Paris organized by the Museum of Modern Art called 3 Centuries of American Art. But for Ernst, it provided a kind of overview of America's landscapes and its citizens. From Edward Hopper's painting, House by the Railroad Tracks, to Alexander Hogue's image of survivors of the drought, and what Ernst called the pinch-faced ladies in Grant Wood's Daughters of the Revolution. He was especially impressed by a portion of the exhibition dedicated to architecture. The views of skyscrapers like the Chrysler and Woolworth buildings that soared to heights not seen in European cities, except by the spires of the cathedrals that, in his words, pointed their fingers into the sky. And, he added,
"But New York and Chicago resembled the complicated monolith that I had created out of wood blocks in my room in Cologne, with the constant fear that someone would slam a door, and the whole structure would collapse as if in an earthquake."
As a young artist in New York City, Ernst incorporated abstract architectural motifs into his paintings, including a network of lines that were short, delicate, and web-like, as well as longer lines, sometimes lighter, sometimes darker, like scaffolding or a skeleton. In addition to the architecture of American cities, Ernst was also affected by the music he encountered in his new home. In his autobiography, A Not-So-Still Life, Ernst talked about one evening in New York, not long after he had arrived in the country, when he heard some musicians at the entrance to Columbus Park.
A spasm band of 9 or so black youngsters attracted the attention of some pedestrians with a solid beat. I went down to listen more closely. The sound and the rhythm were familiar, but the tunes themselves were not. But no question about it, this was jazz, pure improvisation from some of the strangest instruments I had ever seen. The musicians were grouped in a half circle with a hat on the sidewalk as their centerpiece. Now and then little boys jumped into a shuffle or a tap dance. The tall player of the gut bucket occasionally vocalized with some scat singing. I found the experience electrifying and could not tear myself away.
Viewing himself as something of an outcast, he identified with these people about whom he noted his Lower East Side artist pals were critical and dismissive. Ernst spent a lot of time with these musicians, especially his friend Clarence, who managed to sneak Ernst into a Carnegie Hall concert called Spirituals to Swing. Ernst used jazz as a creative model in Honky Tonk, and in other works such as Dallas Blues and Blues in Black and White. In Honky Tonk, Ernst attempts to represent the jazz music that so inspired him by picturing a matrix with a crystalline haze punctuated with gray and black rectangular windows around a central white window. The rectangles are cleared of the fine white lines, revealing a layer of geometric forms with radiating lines in the lighter windows and a network of long, thin white lines in the darker windows. In his description of his experience at the Carnegie Hall concert, Ernst fuses his response to the music and the musicians together with an architectural image.
There was something in that music that was trying to reach my sensibilities. There was the fleeting thought, at some point in the night, that, hidden in the intricate structures of Boogie Woogie, Kansas City, New Orleans, and, yes, the blues, was the image of an architecture. I recall fantasizing the picture of a man, both hands tied, trying to build a house with his voice, while sitting on a cot in his jail cell. I felt deep empathy with the only white face on stage, that of the organizer of the concert, who seemed awed by the artists around him, obviously honored to call them his friends.
In Honky Tonk, the single white window is surrounded by windows of gray and black, much like Ernst among the musicians he spent time with. and often passed the hat for while they were performing in the street, and certainly in the crowd attending the concert that night at Carnegie Hall. Among the musicians was Meade Lux Lewis, playing the piece for which he became well known, Honky Tonk Train.